Hi, this is Ting Jiang, a PhD student from the University of Tokyo, and I'm going to show my research quantifying sprouting dynamics of potato seed tubers using time series point clouds. Potatoes are an important crop, and interestingly, potato size is important. For example, for processing companies like chip companies, there are specific size requirements for potatoes used in making potato chips. In this picture, we can see variously sized potatoes emerging from the stolons of the potato plants. So actually, the tuber size profile is influenced by the plant stems, which grow from the sprouts of the seed tuber provided by seed producers. If we can understand the sprouting dynamics of seed potatoes, we can adjust the tuber size profile through many methods, such as planting density, fertilization, hormonal seed treatments. Actually, storage conditions, particularly the storage temperature, affect the sprout number and vigor of potato seed tubers. These, in turn, influence the stem density, which then influence the tuber size and the number distribution. Both of them contribute to the yield. So, if we can know the expected sprouting dynamics, we can adjust our management to modify the potato yield profile as we need it. Despite its agricultural significance, the potato sprouting dynamics have not been extensively studied. What's more, in other research, sprouts are usually counted by eyes, which is unclear, not dynamic, insufficient, and not detailed. However, with the development of 3D technology, it has become possible to conduct more detailed studies on tuber sprouting. So, this research aims to bridge this knowledge gap by proposing a method to check the potatoes seed tuber sprout growth using time series point cloud models. And as it is widely known, the development of potato seed tuber sprouts is influenced by temperature. This study also aims to quantifying sprouting dynamics and evaluate the effects of different storage temperatures and durations on sprouting. In this experiment, to evaluate the effect of different storage temperatures and durations on sprouting, we established 3 treatments: low treatment, Haozhou treatment, and high-long treatment. In the low treatment, the potatoes were stored continuously at 4 degrees, and in the Haozhou treatment, the potatoes were stored at 4 degrees at first, and then moved to 9 degrees for 2 weeks. And in the high-long treatment, the potatoes were stored at 4 degrees at first, and then moved to 9 degrees for 4 weeks. And all these 3 groups were then scanned at the same temperature. We scanned the potatoes every day for a total of 32 days, using seed potatoes from the same variety and from the same origin. We scanned 7 potatoes per treatment. However, there are several challenges in this study. The first challenge was how to align the point clouds both in time and space, since The potatoes are shrinking and the sprouts are growing. There is unavoidable movement. Everything is changing. How can we accurately align the point clouds over so many days? The second challenge is how to check sprout growth. We need to find a quantifiable description to describe this sprout growth. Because sprouts are relatively small compared to the tuber, and in the point cloud, we need to detect a few number sprout points from a large number of tuber points, which is also a challenge for the algorithm. What's more, sprouts are small, but they are distributed everywhere. The third challenge is how to determine sprout figure effectively. So here is our solution, including 4 steps. First is obtain the time series 3D point cloud data by this self-made system, then reconstruct 3D models, and then align them in time and space. The second step is detecting the tips of growing sprouts. We check the sprout growth by identifying the growing points, which are the tips of the sprouts. Next, we connect these tips to generate the growth trajectories of the sprouts. Finally, we evaluate the sprouting dynamics under different temperatures and durations. And this is the device used to scan the potatoes. The potatoes were fixed on a self-designed base that could be taken apart. The top part of this base was used to align in time, and the bottom part was used to align in space. And this base and the potato were placed on a turntable, and photos are taken at the same time using 6 cameras. Then build 3D models by structure-from-motion method by MetaShape. And we need to create masks for the photos taken. Then using the photos from different angles to reconstruct the 3D models. We can obtain a model for each day. And by aligning these models both in time and space, we can generate a time series point cloud dataset for potato seed tuber sprouting. And next is the detection of the tips of growing sprouts. First, we perform voxel downsampling on the point cloud model. Then, we select peak points that belong to the sprouts. From these peak points, we detect the tips of the sprouts, which are the growth points of each sprout of the tuber. In the step of selecting peak points, this is by calculating the variance of normals within a small neighborhood. The purpose of this step is to obtain some candidate points on the sprouts, so we don't need to capture all the points that belongs to the sprouts. And then we apply the dbScan method to cluster points belonging to the sprouts. By calculating the distance from the center of the points to the clusters, we could get the growth directions of the sprouts. Starting from the candidate points gotten from the last step, we could locate the highest points along the growth directions and then continue until this point becomes a local maximum. and then this point is then identified as the tip of the sprouts. This red point shows the detected sprout tips from these three treatments. We can see that not only the tips of the top sprout, but also the side sprouts and bottom sprouts have been effectively detected. It shows that this algorithm can effectively find the only few points we needed from a really large number of points. Then here is the detected sprout tips from 32 days. And then we could match the detected sprout growth tips from 32 days using the Hungarian algorithm. We can obtain the growth trajectories of the sprouts. Then I use the B-spline to fit the trajectories of the sprout tips, resulting a smooth growth trajectories for each potato sprout. Once we have these growth trajectory maps, we can calculate a lot of interesting dynamic information from them. This chart shows the line graph of the average number of sprout tips detected using this method over time for these three treatments. We can see that the curve for the high temperature treatment group consistently remains above that of the low temperature treatment group. At the beginning, each group had an average of 5 or 4 sprout tips, but by the end of the observation, the number of sprout tips had increased to around 13. What is interesting, not all of sprouts are active and their vigor levels vary. During the 32 days of tracking, some sprouts remain inactive and do not grow. To identify the active sprouts, we calculate the distance from the starting tip to the ending tip and the fitted trajectory length. We set a 2 mm threshold, as 2 mm is commonly used in other studies to assess sprout growth. For this potato tuber, the detected active sprouts are circled in red, and there are a total of 7 active sprouts. And these are the results of active sprouts for these three treatment groups. We can calculate many information that we care about, like the number of active sprouts, length of active sprouts, total average growth speed of active sprouts, even the growth speed per active sprouts. And number of active sprouts in the high-long and high-short group, both under the high temperature treatment, is significantly greater than in the low temperature group. Additionally, the total growth length of the active sprouts in the high temperature groups is also significantly greater than in the low group. Even more interestingly, we conduct a field experiments with these three groups of seed tubers set under the same treatment and counted the stems of plants. It is well known that lower stem density contributes to forming fewer larger tubers, and high stem density contributes to forming many small tubers. And this graph shows a regression between the average number of active sprouts gotten by this research in lab and the average number of stems from the field experiment. This shows a strong correlation between these two, meaning that by detecting the active sprouts using this method, we can estimate stem number and density. This makes it possible to control the potato tuber size profile. Here is the conclusion. This study developed a method to obtain time series data to check the growth dynamics of seed tuber sprouts and to extract the active sprouts. In this experiment, seed tubers stored at higher temperatures were observed to have more active sprouts and longer active sprout lengths, indicating that higher storage temperatures can enhance sprout activity. And this is also a powerful tool for deeper research into potato sprouting behavior and production. In the future, this research will benefit chip companies or seed producers who will advise farmers on expected sprouting dynamics and the stem numbers from a given batch of tubers, and therefore farmers can adjust their planting densities or fertilization to optimize tuber size profile. This method is also potential to be used for other agronomic applications, such as check the growth in seed germination. That's all. This is my email address and our lab's website. Don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks for your attention.
I'd like to thank Ting Jiang for her presentation, and representing her here physically is Professor Wei Gu, who is free to answer questions. We have about 8 minutes. Maybe
3 months again. Maybe you can take that. Yeah, I can. Yeah. All the useless professors are here. Jimmy, Pieter, and me. But, yeah, please.
Thank you for the great presentation. I was curious if you had any plans to quantify like the volume across time of those tubers, because I know you calculated the rate that they were progressing out, but I would imagine that maybe the rate of the volume growth might be relevant too for plant physiology.
The volume of the seed tubers during the sprout development.
Yeah.
I know we haven't measured the volume at that moment, but we do have another solution that mount the measurement machine on the harvest and predict the volume in the real field. So when you dig them out, you can measure the volume. But yeah, for this one, it's just shrinking. So we probably thought that won't be very important at this moment. But thank you for your suggestion. We should have a look at it. Yeah.
So now that you have this method operational, have you considered testing different temperature steps and different times to get a maximum or an optimum value for a particular cultivar?
This is just like the start of the experiment. We don't have a real fixed protocol for certain type of varieties. But with this one, I think we can start to evaluate the several different varieties. And most importantly, I think the storage conditions per farmers are different. So with this type of the experiment protocol, we can help them to figure out what will be the most appropriate storage temperature and durations for them based on their purpose. For example, they want to have a lot of big potatoes, or they want to have a huge amount of the small potatoes.
Here.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to add something.
Hi. Yeah, I got a question. Did you try to use a more classic way to do the registration? Because maybe chamfer loss or something like that to register the whole potato instead of going to the registration of the sprout, maybe easier?
Well, I think we found a simplest way to make this registration easier by just like use physics solutions. So we have printed a small stand on the top, and then every potato stay with the stand, never move. And then maybe this one, this is easier. And the base is, we only have one base, but we have a lot of this small stand on the top of it. And this space is fixed. So every time you can fix the coordinate. I don't know, it's a tricky way, but it's easy and quick.
Oh, okay. Thank you.